Hopefully that works, but well, appreciate everyone's time and willingness to be part of the business engagement work group. This is very new, so I want this, just to be an interactive, and just open for discussion. And, today is just kind of the first initial meeting, and, kind of, the scope of this work group is to just kind of work with me closer on how we can kind of increase our business engagement practices within VR, and how we can kind of enhance our partnership with businesses. So I think, for the most part, everyone knows who one another, but we'll just go ahead and do a quick round of introductions. And the opening round that I have is, if you were to win the lottery, what would be the first thing that you, hey, April, what would be the first thing that you would either pay off or purchase right away? So April, you're just joining. Just again, quick, we'll go ahead and just introduce ourselves. And the opening round is, if you were to win the lottery, what would be the first thing you would either pay off or purchase right away? So I'll just go ahead and get, again, Kim Ludwig, business specialist, been in the role for going on 6.5 years now. Before that, I was a VR counselor for 7 years. So altogether, I've been with VR for 14 years. If I were to win the lottery, I would actually have to say, I have a Jeep Wrangler, and I ultimately want to kind of convert that more into an off-road rig. So I would actually lift it and so forth. So I'll pass it. We'll just kind of pass it to others. So let's see, Emily.
I'm Emily Champa. I'm a counselor in the Rapid City office. Haven't been here for too long. I think I just hit my 2-year mark. If I won the lottery, I'd be pretty boring and just pay off my house would probably be the first thing I would do. I'll send it to David.
Okay, you lagged on me there for a second. I'm David Woodruff. I'm a voc rehab counselor in the Sioux Falls office, and I've been here for about 7 years now. If I won the lottery, I'd pay off my house, just like Emily said. So, let's see. How about Kayla?
I'm Kayla Kane. I am a voc rehab counselor in the Brookings office. I've been with VR for about 2.5 years. And I would buy a house if I won the lottery. So, and I'll pass it to Rhonda.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Williams, Assistant Director for Service to the Blind and Visually Impaired. I've been the Assistant Director for about 4.5 years, I guess. Prior to that, I worked with DRS as a program specialist and VR counselor before that. I would pay off all of my kids' student loans and bills and anything they owe. First, that's the first thing I'd do. I'd feel great just being able to do that. How about I pass it on to April?
Hello, so my name is April and I am the program specialist over at the South Dakota Rehab Center for the Blind, and I've been here for a year already, which seems crazy. And before this, I was a counselor for SBBI for about 4 years. I would definitely pay off my debt and for sure go on a really fun vacation, like especially now. I'm itching for one. I will pass it to Jordan.
Hello, everyone. I am the Policy and Quality Assurance Specialist for DRS. I've been in this job for almost 2 years, which seems crazy. I feel like I finally passed the point where I can't just say I'm new and don't know anything. I'm past that point. So, and I was a counselor in the Watertown and Brookings offices prior to that. And then I was actually a employment specialist in Brookings for 2 years before that. So I've been working with the division in some capacity for almost 9 years, if I did the math right. So, and I think with the lottery, I mean, I would pay off all of my debt first, just because that would be the most responsible thing to do. But then I would probably buy farmland. My husband likes to hunt. And I've been farming with my dad and have learned how to do all sorts of farming stuff that I never thought that I was going to learn how to do. So I would just keep working on the skills. So I believe Lee is the only one that hasn't gone yet.
Lee, you're on mute.
I'm the old part of the group, so my house is paid off. I'm Lee Miller. I'm a senior voc rehab counselor, and I just started in service to the blind, visually impaired, like in July. So I'm new to that, but not new to voc rehab. I think I would remodel. My house is paid off. I'd add a little addition and remodel. That's what I would do if I won the lottery.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone. What I'll do is I'll take some notes too, and share the following our meeting. Any questions on kind of the scope of our little work group or committee, if you want to call it? Again, it's just going to be very informal, and or even some thought. There's some immediate thoughts on kind of things that you hope to learn from this group and what you would recommend.
I would like to see, one of the goals is to increase the comfort level of our counselors approaching employers themselves, not relying solely on providers to do that, especially in the more rural areas where we don't have providers.
Just bear with me, I'm taking some notes down. Other thoughts?
You know, one of the things that I've run into, and it's just kind of interesting, is you'll have, like, I'll have somebody at Goodwill with employment skills program, and we're looking at what we can do to help them kind of get on track with having the structure and having tasks that they're responsible for and things like that. But I've run into the situation a couple times where it's like there's a real balance, I feel like I've had to do in regard to how far do you bend before an employer's going, wait a minute, we can't do all that. Or this person isn't going to be doing this job if you do all that. So kind of balancing those employer expectations as far as what that work is with helping that individual. And I see it mostly with that program because Goodwill, they try really hard to help everyone. And we've tried different things with people to help them. And then there's a point, you know, there where I'm kind of going, I'm not thinking they're going to get this one with an employer. And we need to, you know, really visit with the person about that as well. And the employer hires them to help the employer, not to help the client. And, you know, and try to work on that too. So that's just been kind of an interesting balance that I've had with counseling and guidance with businesses and with wanting to help the individual succeed.
And that kind of goes right along the lines too of at what, you know, kind of putting the, and I guess not necessarily our needs or our clients' needs first, but rather kind of especially when building up relationships with businesses, is putting their needs first, getting to know their company, kind of their workforce needs, kind of what they're looking for employees, and then also matching, really whether it be that job description or the additional details that you find out when communicating with businesses about, okay, these are the skills or the tasks that you're going to be expected to do, and addressing if there's any limitations that the individual may have, to overcome that. So that's a good point. So, yeah, and there'll be kind of different ways of kind of, I kind of hope to take some meetings. I'm hoping to that we will meet every other month is kind of, and we can always change that too as the future goes on. So we'll just kind of see how that plays out, but kind of take some time just to go over some resources, materials, and I'm really hopeful that all of you will be kind of that within, your local districts and offices to be that go-to person, and kind of report back to within super or district meeting of what discussed. So that's kind of how I envision this to be somewhat. So, resources that I would hope to go over with you guys is, mention kind of how, like, tips and strategies of how to approach businesses, kind of the language, some of those resources, and then also just like job accommodation network, stuff like that. So reasonable accommodation. So actually, I'm going to have like a little quote unquote homework assignment for all of you to that we'll go over following this meeting. So yeah. Anything else?
I would like more like provider meetings. I know we do we already have provider meetings, but it would be nice to connect with more employers and, like you said, get their needs and then be able to see what they need so that we can connect our clients more. Like, I wish we could do like a 30-minute meet and greet once a month and have employers who are interested to come learn about our services, join, have it like a consistent, the second, a day of the month. And then I don't know if employers would be interested in it, but it would be nice, almost like a little, not a chamber mixer, but almost like a meet, this is what we can provide. Do you guys have questions about how our services go, or what are your guys' big needs and stuff like that? And, if, I don't know, it would just be nice if there was something more consistent with something they could come and join if they wanted to know more, or if they were wondering, or, about what services we provide.
Kind of like lunch and learn opportunities almost.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know how much employers would be interested in that, but it would be nice if they knew oh, well, there's that meeting I think I'm going to attend next month to see what they have to offer, something that was consistent.
Mm-hmm. And I know, some of the offices, I know Sioux Falls and Aberdeen in the past and Rapid in the past have actually provider meetings, employers that have actually come in and kind of talked about their business, but that's kind of
still
more,
do that, which is super cool.
Okay, yeah. So is that kind of, and that's also an opportunity, I think, too, for employers to kind of connect with providers and VR counselors too. But that kind of doesn't delve into the benefits of VR services that's available for businesses. So, another thing that I have considered doing is putting together a quarterly newsletter for businesses focusing on VR. So I don't know if that would be something that we could work together as a group on. So maybe think about some ideas, suggestions for that. And so
I think success stories would be cool on that, because I think if employers can see that, then they would be like, oh, and then whatever services were provided to help that person be successful, like, oh, I didn't know they could do that.
yeah, and with just a little FYI on that, DRS does have success stories of individuals available, and that is on our website. I can share my screen here. Everyone see that okay? So it's the spotlight on people. And that's just a series of articles. So, and I think SBBI, are you starting to do?
We're doing some success stories on ours as well.
Okay. So, are you doing that like once a month or?
Not that regular. As
Okay.
we get them.
Okay. While we're on success stories, a little update. The Ability for Hire campaign. At the website, the Facebook page, we have just decided to just end that as a campaign and focus kind of more of emphasizing our services directly. And along with the spotlight on people, there's actually a business resources page on the DRS website that I'm currently in the process of putting more content on there, but that's going to be kind of the go-to page to direct businesses to. So maybe that's something we could just spend some time on next month, going over that page to kind of get you all familiar with that. So, and also, you know, if you have any ideas of, you know, like with success stories of increasing those, you know, think a variety of success stories can be achieved through highlighting businesses. So if you have any recommendations of like businesses directly in your community that would be good to feature in a success story, just feel free to add those as suggestions. So, all right, but that leads us into registered apprenticeships. Are all of you familiar with registered apprenticeship? Somewhat? Okay.
I think a little bit, but like if someone were to ask me questions about it, I might not be able to answer very well.
Same with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So, and I'm just familiar with the basics of registered apprenticeship, but what it is, it's kind of the hands-on classroom learning for individuals actually kind of are earning wages while they're learning and doing the on-the-job training for that position that's considered a registered apprenticeship. Department of Labor handles that for our state. So if you kind of in the past couple of years, there's been kind of emphasis from their department on increasing registered apprenticeship opportunities for adults, but there's also opportunities for youth too, but I'm not really familiar how it works for youth. You know, kind of previously there was like certain industry sectors that were considered as registered apprenticeship. So like the electrical, the plumbing, so kind of those areas, but that has since then expanded since in the past couple of years. So that's kind of expanded to healthcare, manufacturing. So I'm hoping we can increase, you know, opportunities for VR clients to partake in those registered apprenticeships. So, and actually on February 8th, kind of during that quote unquote monthly DDN training that we are all familiar with. There's actually going to be Department of Labor is going to present on kind of just going over registered apprenticeship, the career advisors, and then the work opportunity tax credit. So Shayna will send out some details on that. So, but I'm hoping, you know, there is information on the Department of Labor's website, of course, with registered apprenticeships, but there's not enough information of like you and I to go in and say, okay, what certain industry sectors or what are those businesses that are actually approved as a registered apprenticeship sponsor? So when you hear of registered apprenticeships, you know, like Emily said, I just don't know enough about it to where I could talk to my client about. So what are other things that come to mind when you think of registered apprenticeship or would like to know more about?
Is this something that any employer kind of in those areas could apply for someone to become a registered apprentice through the Department of Labor? So there may be employers out there that either don't know about it or have been hesitant, but you know, if they find the right person, this is something that they could sign up for through Department of Labor?
I believe so. I think from my understanding, and so Department of Labor, of course, oversees it, but then in order to become like a sponsor, the business is called the sponsor in the registered apprenticeship model. They would actually have to apply through like the federal U.S. Department of Labor, because in South Dakota, the final hearsay for that approval is done at the federal level. So, but yeah, I believe so. Yep. And when I think of registered apprenticeship, you know, I think of what a great opportunity, especially for individuals that maybe post-secondary education is just not the right fit for them, but more of that hands-on learning. That would be kind of that route, you know. So
do you know, is it a lot more work for an employer to do this? And who pays the employee? Because it's pay as you learn.
yeah, I believe the employer. So
Yeah, there's a website called Start Today SD, and that's kind of where the employer has to start, and then they can fill out like a simplified form, and then a representative will reach out to them and kind of help them go through the process, I think. But it would be nice to have like an actual list, because I've never seen a list of the employers who actually have apprenticeships. I know I had a client do one, so I know that, but yeah,
yeah, and the website that April just referencing too, it's right here. But you know, and just looking, you know, there's information for, you know, workers, employers, but when, you know, just it doesn't get into like, okay, what businesses are offering registered apprenticeship opportunities, because I think that's kind of what we're missing.
And I've had a limited experience with this in the past, and they might be hesitant to do that because my understanding was that they do try to do some of that job development based on what, you know, the clients are looking for. I had somebody that wanted to get a CNC apprenticeship and didn't have anything like that. So it was over a year, they were trying to find a business that was interested in doing that. And so I don't know if maybe it would be changing all the time. Like maybe they have a spot open and they fill it with that apprentice, and then they don't have a spot open anymore, so then they have to take them off the list. So I'm not sure if they would be willing to do a list or not, just the way that, you know, things are always changing for us. We don't have a list of employers or anything. They might not be willing to do that.
I'm almost wondering, do you think it would be beneficial to see or have someone there's a couple of Department of Labor reps that kind of focuses on registered apprenticeship to maybe just meet with our group and kind of get into more of these conversations.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And I was going to throw out earlier too, just having an idea of who regionally like covers like our area. So like, who would I talk to if I had questions about registered apprenticeships? I know it's somebody at Department of Labor. I don't know who. It's been over a year since I talked to, and I can't remember who it was. I'd have to go back through my emails and figure it out. But just having a primary point of contact for this specifically would be helpful, rather than having to go through their phone tree and get the wrong person a couple of times, or at least here in Sioux Falls. It's kind of how it feels like it operates over there sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, previously I think there was a list available. However, with the recent changes kind of within Department of Labor, they kind of cover different areas, so I'm kind of curious how that is now. So yeah, absolutely. So I think just kind of increasing our awareness and familiarity with registered apprenticeship is the first and foremost. So I'm really going to rely on all of you to become the gurus with me and passing that information along to local offices. So it'll happen. It won't be overnight, but so. Anything else on registered apprenticeship?
No, I mean, I was kind of trying to go to see the process of trying to find one to see how complicated it is. And yeah, it would be nice if there was a list, because it takes you to a career one stop and that says this page is no longer available. You need to look nationally, and then you can go kind of like Indeed, type in the area that you want, and then you find some. That's
well, and it'd be nice to have a listing of the different industry sectors that South Dakota offers for registered apprenticeship to kind of tie in with the counseling and guidance. So
for sure.
I had a person that was doing a work experience through Department of Labor, and they were trying to get, the Department of Labor person was trying to get the business to do an apprenticeship. And there was, I thought it was, they had paperwork that the Department of Labor had paperwork that the employer needed to fill out to do that. And then they get money from the business gets money from Department of Labor. And then that goes towards that salary too, or the wages of the person, or something like that. It seemed like that's about all I know.
yeah, yep, and that very well may possibly be because I know Department of Labor has a grant from the federal kind of focus more on registered apprenticeship efforts.
Yeah, because I was kind of wondering what's the benefit to the employer to go through all these, jump through these hoops, as opposed to just training somebody, on their own, if they're paying the wage anyway. That's what I was a little confused about. If it's not a benefit to the employer, I don't know why they'd jump at the chance. If it's just more work, more paperwork or whatever.
Yeah, and it's a timely process, from my understanding, for businesses to become a sponsor, if you will. So, but yeah, I think it'd just be very helpful just to maybe have for our next meeting kind of deeper conversations about this. So, okay. So kind of any other additional comments, feedback on kind of what you would hope to or would like to see from our little work group?
With what Rhonda had said kind of at the beginning of the meeting, hoping that counselors will be able to be more comfortable talking to employers. I definitely agree with that. That's something I hope I can learn through this too. Because a lot of times when I do talk to employers, sometimes I'm not sure what to say, or I'm not sure if I'm explaining things correctly. So that would definitely be a big hope out of this, to be able to have the tools to be more comfortable with that.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. What would help kind of, what would be some ideas of how to address, you know, of course, I can share some resources, information, but would it be helpful to kind of do some role playing on like how to approach businesses in certain aspects of, like, for example, I could just kind of do an overview of how I initially reach out to a business too.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful to know kind of what you do when you initially talk with them, because I think that's the hardest part, especially if I'm just kind of calling them out of the blue, knowing how to even start the conversation.
Sure. Okay.
I think another tricky part is, so I sat in on a BRN meeting once, and there was a lot of employers in there, obviously, and I was kind of explaining what I was doing for my practicum. And I kind of had the idea that I'd go in and meet with the HR people, and I'd give like a quick like elevator speech about what we can provide, and ask them what their needs were. And one of the HR people like totally flipped, was like, she's like, I would not want you to ask me what my needs are. I would want you to come in and kind of already know what my needs are by researching my business and stuff, like in the openings and stuff like that. And I was like, oh. And so that kind of threw me for a loop, and I was like, I don't know. So I was like, it's kind of hard. It depends on the business and the HR person that you're talking to also, because some know nothing, and it is good to give a quick elevator speech about what we can provide. And then other ones like you to ask what their needs are, but then other people are like, you should already know, if you're coming to meet with me, what my needs are based off of the openings I have, and stuff like that. So I think that's challenging too, knowing how to approach it. And I don't know a solution to know that besides getting to meet with them. But yeah, that was a learning experience for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no right answer for that, April. You just don't know. I mean, that's just like meeting with your client for the very first time. You just don't know how that conversation's going to be. You can prepare and do as much as you can ahead of time. And yes, it is recommended to do some research about the business before going in and to visit with them. Say, hey, I was looking on your website. Would you just be willing to tell me more about this or that? Kind of some of those conversation starters. And all you can do is go with the flow of the conversation. I myself encounter resistance, hesitancy when talking to businesses, because especially, when as soon as they hear the word disability, before I would always introduce myself immediately as I'm Kim Ludwig. I'm with the South Dakota Division of Rehabilitation Services, or BOC Rehab. I work with people with disabilities. That was just a red flag. Said, oh, disabilities. Well, nobody with a disability could do any positions within my company. So since then, I've just, especially when introducing myself to a business for the very first time, I'll just say, hey, I'm Kim Ludwig. I'm just here. I'm interested in learning more about your company. And then eventually, whether it be in another meeting or another conversation at another point in time, kind of familiarizing them with who I'm with. So, but then there's other businesses that immediately know who we are or want to employ people with disabilities, especially if there's like with Section 503 federal contractors, where they're required a certain percentage to do affirmative action hiring outreach to people with disabilities. So, but yeah, no easy approach. Something we will definitely cover though as time goes on. So, right. Well, great conversations, everyone. So is there anything last minute final thought before we kind of wrap up the meeting? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And here's a little follow-up homework assignment. Don't worry if nothing major. So there's about 5 questions. So from now until our next meeting in March, we'd like for all of you just to take some time to go through these questions, think about it, and then answer them. So the first question is, what is your understanding of VR's role in working with businesses or employers? What are some challenges that you're hearing and or observing from providers that they're experiencing in working with businesses for recruiting and hiring people with disabilities? What resources, information do you feel DRS should have more readily available? Kind of talk about some ideas. What are some of your experiences working with businesses in your role as a counselor? What are some ideas that DRS can do to enhance, and I should change that. I should change that to just VR so we can include SBVI. Can do to enhance outreach efforts kind of within local communities. So that is the homework assignment. I will send it out along with the minute. So yeah. Right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time again and look forward to our work group.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kim.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.